Thank you for joining us again here on another week of Get Ready News. I'm Mark Lindstedt. This is my brother David Lindstedt. And we've decided to start going over the news a little bit with the biblical lens still,
Yep.
but it's time to be a little humorous about this because you can't help but laugh.
That's true. This world is falling fast, and they don't even know which way's up.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of an interesting look to see what they're trying to do to redeem themselves, or what the big issue of the day is.
Probably the biggest laugh I get right now are those with the theology that the world is just going to get better and better and better until everyone's saved and the world's going to be good finally, and that's when the kingdom's coming.
I've looked at the Bible over and over again, and I can't find that instance.
Well, the problem is that the evidence shows to the contrary.
Yes.
I remember I was just watching Ted Cruz comment to the Sierra Club. This was back during Obama's administration. And the Sierra Club said, the science has settled that the globe is warming at an alarming rate in cooking. And Ted Cruz said, the evidence from your own satellites say that there is no significant warming on the Earth for the last 18 years.
Yeah, it's bonkers. When I was younger, there was a big video that came out that everybody thought, oh, this is the nail in the coffin. It was called An Inconvenient Truth.
Yeah. And
Al Gore made these absolutely horrific predictions that were going to kill the whole world, and we have not seen a single one play out at all. In fact, even the polar bear, the amount of polar bears in the world has increased.
Yeah. Well, and Ted Cruz actually used that phrase. He said, to borrow a phrase from a friend of yours, I'm going to say, the inconvenient truth is that the data doesn't match your science.
Yeah, it's just a money grab, a control. I saw that Hawaii passed a bunch of climate control. They're going to start charging people who come in, the tourists, more money in order to combat climate control, but they're not even looking after the citizens that lost their houses in that fire. I think they said 6 out of 2,000 houses is all that's been rebuilt since that happened.
Yeah, well, it's just a money grab for the politicians. Anyway, on our screen back here is our YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe to that if you like our content. But let's think about some of these articles I want to talk about today. And this first one, it says there's no evidence for a Trump claim about void Biden pardons because of Autopen. Now, what is Autopen?
That's a good question. I work at a company where I make contracts, and we have to send those contracts out to be signed.
Yeah.
And we have this thing called DocuSign.
Yeah.
And we send this PDF document, and it's kind of funny, we zero in on PDF because they're secure. But I can buy a program that allows me to unlock them and change whatever. Anyway, and we send this to a client, and then a client taps on the screen and picks a script and writes their name, and it just fills it in every place that it needs to be signed.
Now, the auto pen for the president is a little more technical than that. It's actually a pen that's set up to sign the same signature. It's robotically controlled or something, I believe. But the question is not, are they legal that they are signed by him, or that they're bearing a signature that is to represent him? The real question, and my real question is, this other article that where the chairman demands a testimony of Biden's doctor to cover up his mental decline. So, even though he didn't physically sign these, but it still bears his signature, was he aware of who he was pardoning?
That's a really, really good question, because there's been a couple of cases, and I don't have it in front of me right now, and I can see if I can find it.
Yeah.
At least one case I know of that they asked the president about an executive order.
Yeah.
And he had no clue what they were talking about. So, either his dementia was so bad that he didn't remember that, or somebody else used the pen to sign the order.
Or, in my other opinion, they told him this is to free Albanian slaves.
Oh, yeah.
And it really was to stop the natural gas production. And he had I think that was natural gas. He had no idea that he had signed something to stop the production of natural gas.
Yeah, and it just makes it too easy to sign something, especially when somebody, let's say that, Biden had half a brain.
Yeah.
And he was halfway there, and there was times that he had problems, and we all know as we get older that happens, but he was still being taken advantage of.
Oh, yeah.
And people were pushing their own agenda. In fact, I think I saw a story this morning that said that Jill's chief of staff was more in control of the presidency than anybody even realizes.
Yeah. Well, I start to look back at this, and I've recently had a cancer diagnosis. I know he's got stage 4 aggressive, is it prostate cancer? Yeah. And here's the thing. They discovered my cancer through a routine procedure that was being done because I felt an issue. And my cancer, we don't know yet what stage it is. It's either 2 or 3. But the president is medically tested on all fronts every single year.
Yep.
And just out of the blue, we're at stage 4 prostate cancer. After the presidency.
Exactly. I mean, it's in the bone. Yeah. That doesn't happen when it starts.
No.
And I was watching one doctor, even on the Clown News Network. I mean, CNN. He's even saying this has to be a minimum 3 years old.
A minimum.
He's had to have this for 2 or 3 years. He could have had this before he even took office.
So you're telling me a man in his 70s that needs a routine colonoscopy, that is the president of the United States, did not have colonoscopies, blood markers for cancers, blood markers for cholesterol tested every year at minimum?
Well, and I'll tell you this, as a man, as the older you get, the more they want to look at your prostate. So it's almost impossible.
Yeah. Well, we're looking in a world right now where we know when President Trump has a Diet Coke.
Yes.
We know when he has a Big Mac. And you're telling me we don't know the state of the prostate of the leader of the free world?
Well, it's amazing to me the way the media, it's supposed to be, the media is supposed to be on our side.
Yeah, yeah.
But the media has picked their side. And it's amazing how much I know of Joe Biden in a different area than I know of Trump.
Yeah.
Trump, all I know is how bad he is and how evil of a person he was. And then over here, it's more of a hero look, and it just it amazes me.
Well, it reminds me of the guy on the street who goes around and he reads quotes from Biden.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, man, can you believe President Trump would say this? How racist is that? And then at the end of the thing, all the people are agreeing, oh, he's so racist. He said, oh, I had that wrong. This is the list of quotes from Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's probably not how he meant it.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah. I tell you, it's such a joke. It's such a fallacy to see this go on and to see the blatant cover-up of his health and mental health. And our mother used to say, before she passed, she used to say that Joe Biden was being elder abused.
Yes.
He was being abused because of his condition and age to do what they wanted to do. He was just a front man, a puppet. Yeah,
and I've seen this a couple of times now. One with Joe Biden, another one with a guy named Stan Lee.
Yeah.
He was the inventor of these comic books, and at the end they were just dragging him around, making him appear, and he wasn't there.
Yeah.
He was out of it. But this gives me insight into how the media can distort.
Oh yeah.
What we see, and we always think about in the end, how are people going to be deceived?
Yeah.
I know the Bible says God will send them a delusion, but you're always thinking, well, is everybody going to be? What was that thing in Men in Black? and wipe their minds, or is it going to be false?
Yeah.
False things, and that kind of falls in with what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Which was Trump sued 60 Minutes.
Yeah, do you have that article?
Trump sued 60 Minutes, pardon me here, sued 60 Minutes over the editing of Kamala Harris's interview.
This isn't his first time he's sued the media.
No. That's right. You were talking about it earlier.
I don't remember how much that other one was. I'll look that up while you're doing that. But he sued. Was it NBC? I'll look that up. Anyway, let's continue on about this editing. Yeah, show the video.
Yeah, let me show you this video. This is the video compiled by a local Fox News station, and this video is going to show this editing. So you're going to see the interviewer, and I can't remember his name offhand, and he's going to ask her a question, and she's going to give this answer, and then they're going to go back, and he's going to ask this question, and they're going to give the answer how it was broadcast to all of the world here.
And she gave some really stupid answers. And what they did is they cut those answers out and they put other answers in. And I think it's really, I think it's a very bad act.
Former President Donald Trump keeping up his full-court press against 60 Minutes, accusing the program of deceptively editing Vice President Kamala Harris's sit-down interview to make her look better. The controversy was born after the same question from 60 Minutes correspondent Bill Whitaker was attributed to different published responses from Harris.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
He asked her a question.
Yeah.
And she comes up and she has this word salad, this talk to nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how many times I've listened to people give speeches and stuff and they never get to the point.
Yeah.
I don't think she even has a point to get to.
No, she had no idea what she was talking about.
She was just talking in the air to fill time.
Yeah.
And then the next time he asked the question and they gave just a little tiny blurb.
Well, and I think that's the reason you set it up to where you have a camera on that person and a camera on the question, so you can use the question and then cut away all the video you want until she says, or the person being interviewed says what you want them to say.
Yes, and it's a total deception.
Yeah.
You know, you think that, well, AI, when we have this new Google VO3 AI that is just unsurpassed.
Yeah.
You could make an entire movie with this AI.
Yeah.
And I think that people in Hollywood ought to be nervous that they've probably lost their jobs. But this is another way to do it. You know, I was always thinking, oh, the AI is going to come in and cause all this issue. Well, we have a corrupt media that's actually editing things for the one they want to see win.
Well, it takes me back, and I probably say this more than I should, but it takes me back to George Orwell's 1984. And I think about the main character of that book. His job was to correct the news from previous years to reflect the current situation, and that it was predicted to happen this way, and it was going to be good for you to happen this way. And then he was to take the old clipping and send it to the incinerator for it to never be seen again.
Right. And we actually have that today.
Yeah.
The internet gets scrubbed occasionally for things. And what's interesting is there's a site called the Wayback Machine.
Yeah.
And you can actually go to this website and you can see what used to be on the internet.
Wow.
And of course, I'm sure they'd be able to get into that and erase that as they want to also.
Well, and we see the blatant change in coverage from Kamala or Biden to Trump, because remember when he was down there in the South and he said there's good people on both sides of the argument.
Yeah.
But they cut it off right there because they didn't want to say what he said next. Because he said next, I'm not for any of this white supremacy stuff at all.
And they just repeat everything right before it.
Yeah.
And nothing after it, and they don't even give a context.
Yeah.
And they beat that into the ground until even Snopes now has a thing saying that that's not true.
Well, it's funny because this isn't the first time he's sued.
No, it's
a
not.
network. In fact, I'm looking at an article from NPR who will not ever say anything good about the president.
Yep.
It says ABC settles with President Trump over defamation case for $15 million.
Yep. That's what they settled on, and that was when they defamed Trump.
Yeah. So it's proven
Yeah.
that these networks are biased in their coverage on purpose.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's why fake media
Yeah.
term came about. And I think Trump made everybody. Now, some of us were already kind of aware of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Trump really brought it to mainstream thought that the media could be lying
Yeah.
to us.
I love watching him at a press conference. Oh, you're fake news. I'm not going to ask you
Yeah,
a question. Yeah, I'll take your question. You'll report it wrong anyway, but here's my answer. He is so upfront about it. And I know that people think that's abrasive and aggressive, but in a world where the truth is being hidden so much, we have to be this way.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I've always heard, is, well, Christians in the Bible are so mean.
Yeah.
Well, here's one of the statements that I really love to use, and that is, I'd rather make you mad and get you to heaven than love you into hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
There comes a point in time where you have to know the truth.
Yeah.
It's just like with your cancer.
Yeah.
If you didn't know that you had this and you weren't taking steps to fix this, this would be the end for you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I don't know anyone out there has been through the cancer diagnosis process, but it's a roller coaster.
Sure.
1 minute, oh, these results are fantastic. The next minute, well, we won't know till we do pathology in 2 weeks. So you go from being told everything's great to being told I don't know, to being everything's great to I don't know. And to have the truth makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
And finding out through this diagnosis, we won't have the truth of my stage for 2 more weeks after my surgery.
Yep. And I think that's what we're getting to with this lawsuit.
Yeah.
Trump is suing CBS, 60 Minutes,
Yeah.
because they lied.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a little lie. It wasn't a lie to a room full of
Yeah.
people. It was a lie to the world. And they came out and they tried to offer him $15 million also.
Yeah.
And Trump said, nope, not going to do it. And then he says, I've suffered mental anguish over this interview, and you're like, man, he's just grinding it in, and it's fantastic, but it has to be done.
Yeah, well, he's using their own terminology, their own way of viewing things against them now. He's saying, okay, if we have to suffer for your mental anguish, now you're going to suffer from my mental anguish.
That's right.
Now, how much is the suit for?
$10 billion.
Yes. I tell you what, he is so good at sticking it to people. I enjoy that so much, and I really hope and I pray that the next person to come to power, because we're running in, 1 more year, we're going to probably start campaigning again.
Yeah.
So the next person to come needs to be this brutal and this honest about things.
Yeah, and I think that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Who we have as the leader of this country, whether they're mentally with it, number one. Number two, are they upright enough
Yeah.
to say truthful things and to do things? I look at these tariffs, and now we got federal judges thinking they can step in and do stuff with trade, and I don't know where they get this idea that they have that power, but there's a little discomfort when you're fixing something.
Yeah.
I just had surgery too, and it's not all fun and games.
It's not all rainbows and sunshine.
You have to tear stuff down to get to the root of the problem, fix that problem, and come back up. And the tariffs are that.
Yeah.
And people are just crying, oh my goodness, this is going to go up, and this is going to...
Well, I look at the manufacturing jobs we've lost over the last 25 years. And the only way to bring those jobs back to America is to make it the same cost to build here as it is to build there.
Exactly.
And if they're going to slave labor their people for $1 a day, then you have to impose enough of a tariff that they're playing on the equal playing ground here in the United States.
Exactly. So in the car manufacturing, I think those people that build cars make around $60 an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more.
Yeah.
Well, we went to Myanmar, and somebody in Myanmar is making 50 cents a day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember seeing the welding being done on the building next,
Yeah.
and those guys are wearing flip-flops, tank tops, and shorts, no goggles, on bamboo scaffolding, welding buildings together for a couple of bucks.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you have something made over there and you ship it over here for pennies, yeah, we can buy it cheap.
Yeah.
But eventually there's not going to be a job for you to have to buy that.
Yeah.
Because all of our money is gone.
Yeah. Well, it's got to level the playing field at some point, somehow.
I think we're finding out you can't be a nation of consumers. You have
Yeah.
to make something to make money. You have to do something to bring money in. You can't just spend it all the time.
Here's a little humor as we kind of get to the end of this show. I thought this was just the greatest thing ever. Cheese-loving daredevils hurl themselves down Cooper's Hill in Gloucestershire in a famous race. And this, I'm just going to play the video without sound. We don't need to overlay it or whatever. But it was just hilarious to think these people go in there to have this this chance of winning a cheese wheel, of all things, an 8-pound Gloucester cheese wheel. And I just, what are the medical bills going to cost for these people? I'm just curious. What's an 8-pound cheese wheel cost versus the broken leg or the broken arm or the fractured skull?
I don't know, but this is pretty funny. This is, it's kind of funny here in Kansas, and there's a town called Liberal,
Yeah.
and they do a pancake race, and they actually race with and against people in the UK. They have a pancake race too, and all sorts of people go out and do crazy things. And
Well, the pancake race, I think they just carry pancakes, don't they?
I think they got them in a pan or something,
Yeah.
and they're running up and down the field.
And this is, I mean, this
Those
is
are going downhill, pretty dangerous.
bodily injury here. I mean, I can tell you, right, my surgery for this cancer I'm having here, my deductible or my out-of-pocket expense isn't too horrible. It's like $1,200.
Yeah.
I certainly think I could buy a cheese wheel for less than $1,200.
Absolutely.
So maybe I'll go cheer on these people that tried to maim themselves and just buy a cheese wheel on my way out of town. Now, can you take an 8-pound cheese wheel on the airplane, or do you have to ship it home?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably have to ship it over the ocean.
Well, as we look at all these things, as we look at the silliness of the world, as we find the humor in blatant lies, it really comes down to a very serious subject.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're looking at the known world, and as a young man, I kept questioning whether what I was taught as a kid was true, that America leads the world.
Yeah.
And now that I'm older, I do see that America really does lead the world in certain areas. And as we fall into this mess of the truth not being out there, of deception, of corruption, it's scary.
Yeah, and I also think it shows you that no matter how righteous you think a country is,
Yeah.
and how you think that the creators made the perfect
Yeah.
system of the best government man could ever do,
Yeah,
that it can still be taken over
yeah,
and used against people and actually be an evil entity itself.
yeah. Well, I'm recalling Star Wars, and I remember the first 3 movies were about how the Empire is so bad.
Well,
And then you watch the next 3 released movies, which are actually movies 1, 2, and 3, and you see that the Republic bought an army to fight bad things, but the Republic was led by a bad person that then turned the army into a bad army
right?
to take over the galaxy. And so the leader of that world cannot be for evil.
Yeah.
Or the world will be taken over by evil. And I really see, I know a lot of people don't like the Star Wars references, but it really was eye-opening to think, man, that's exactly where we're at. We built this great country. We said, okay, we need a military. We need to have presence in all these other countries and help them out. And then when you see that machine gets taken over by an entity that wants supreme control and power, how it manipulates and goes into the way it shouldn't.
You know, and you can look at this and you can say that today's kids are have this tantalizing idea that communism and socialism are fantastic.
Yeah.
But the problem is that it comes to the same issue. Once you have that one leader that's involved, he takes everything that looks like it could be good,
Yeah.
feels like it. You know, what's better than us all sharing together and doing all this stuff? Well, then you're beholden to one thing, and
Yeah.
that one thing can change how you know. Look at Cuba.
Yeah.
You know, Cuba looks like a bustling economy. Things are going, but it's actually devastating.
Yeah.
Communism looks good, socialism looks good from there until you realize that one person controls everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the more we move toward socialism
Mm-hmm.
and communism, the easier it is to control it.
Yeah. I think of the old quote, "The truth will set you free." And that really comes from the Bible. It's not a man-made quote, it's an inspired quote. And while there is some freeing qualities in admitting the truth of something you may have lied about, that's not what it's speaking about.
No.
It says in John 1 that grace and truth entered the world through Christ Jesus. And the truth that will set you free is Jesus Christ.
Amen. Yes.
And he is the truth, the way, and the life. And what he's talking about, what the Bible is quoting there, is the truth will set you free, meaning will set you free from your sin
Yes.
and set you free from the debt of your sin, which is hell, for eternity. And if you look through the Bible and you see the reference to Gehenna and hell and all these things, and there are some really strange thoughts out there that you'll only suffer as long as your sins should have made you suffer. But if you read in Revelation, it is a place of torment and fire that burns forever and ever.
Yeah.
And the worm dieth not.
Yeah. It would take us an eternity to pay for it, which means we'll never pay for it because it's an eternity.
Exactly.
And I always think about to Pontius Pilate.
Yeah.
He asked Jesus, "What is truth?" And he should have said, "Who
Yeah.
is truth?" He had truth right in front of him.
Yeah. So I hope today that you've placed your faith in Jesus as your Savior, in that truth of who He is and what He did for you. And really to share that gospel as much as you possibly can, because that's what we've been commanded to do. Take the gospel to every nation, every corner of the earth, and share that truth with them that they might be set free from their sins. Thank you for joining us this week.